Chapter 27 of Serafina and the Twisted Staff. Serafina watched, her heart beating strong and steady in her chest, marking time. When Braden came out of his room, the spy stepped back into the shadow of an alcove and hid from him. Serafina sucked in a breath and readied herself to push open the register cover and leap into action. But as Braden walked by, the man remained hidden. He did not attack. To Serafina's astonishment, Gideon walked at Braden's side. The dog moved slowly, carefully, but he was walking on his own. Serafina couldn't believe it. How was this possible? She'd only been gone a few days. How could the dog's broken bones have healed so quickly? The spy waited until Braden was gone, and then quickly slipped into his room. The dirty, rotten rat, Serafina thought as she crawled back to the other register to watch. The intruder rummaged hurriedly through Braden's desk and then opened his dresser drawers. She worried that he'd pull back the register cover and see her there, or maybe hear her breathing. But she had to stay and see what he was doing. As she bent down to look under Braden's bed, she saw the side of the scar face. Just as she suspected, it was Grothan. She felt the fear rising up in her stomach. Why was he rummaging through Braden's belongings? Was he truly looking for evidence of Mr. Thorne's murder? Or was he looking for clues to the whereabouts of the black cloak? Or did Braden have some other connection to all this that she didn't understand? Grantham found a small map of the riding trails that Braden had been working on, but seemed frustrated that he couldn't find anything else. When he finally left Braden's room, Serafina breathed a sigh of relief, but she couldn't rest. She dropped down through the vent shaft on the main floor and looked through a register just in time to see Gideon lying down in the morning sun in the entrance hall with the master's huge St. Bernard Cedric. That meant Braden couldn't be that far away, but finding him and staying undetected wasn't going to be easy. Many of the fancy dressed guests were taking their strolls. Servants bustled around the house, attending to the various duties upstairs and down. Several families of the Vanderbilts were arriving from New York to spend the holidays. Serafina prowled from one spot to another, avoiding a gaggle of housemaids, and then sneaking past a pair of footmen, one of whom had a bandaged hand from her bite a few days before. At noon, the house was so busy that she had to take refuge in the hidden compartment beneath the stairway on the south side of the second floor. When she overheard two chambermaids saying that the young master had gone out to the south terrace, she ran for it. Slipping out the side door, she darted along the columns at the front of the house, beneath the strange creatures carved into the top of the columns, and the gargoyles mounted along the edge of the roof. Few people seemed to notice them, but she had always been fascinated by the menagerie of Gothic carvings that adorned the house. Weird dragons and chimeras, sea-horses and sea serpents, bearded men and fanged beasts, strange girls with wings, mysterious figures in cloaks and hoods, and 100 other fantastical creatures of the imagination. She had always wondered where Biltmore stone carvers had come up with their ideas. She ran down the steps to the long, whiskery-covered pergola that bordered the south terrace. a flat, open, grass-covered courtyard with the picture-square view of the river valley and the mountain beyond. Braden and Lady Rona stood on the terrace alone, gazing out at the scenery. Serafina had been hoping that Lady Rona's father had finally arrived and taken her away, but clearly that hadn't had happened. Serafina desperately wanted to talk to Braden to warn him about what she learned in the mountains, but she couldn't do that with Lady Renoa there. She ran the length of the pergola, came up the steps that approached from the other side, and then peered across the terrace. Lady Renoa wore a polka-dotted blue walking dress with an elaborate triple lapel, a black lace throat, and a collar that stood high around the back of her neck, as if holding the tremble of the red hair. She carried the matching parasol casually over her shoulder to protect herself from the sun. She reminded Serafina of the girls depicted in the hand-colored fashion plates of the ladies' magazines. She seemed to have a new dress or outfit for every activity and time of day. But the sight of Braden and Lady Renoa together wasn't the most startling thing. What surprised Serafina was that Braden was carrying a large bird of prey on his leather-gloved left hand. That must be Kess, Braden's falcon with the broken wing. Kess was a strikingly handsome bird, with blue-gray wings and black, and a pale breast streaking with dark bars. Her throat was pure white, but much of her head was black, like she was wearing a helmet and a mask, ready for battle. But what Serafina loved most of all were Kess's powerful yellow talons were long, carved black claws, perfect for raking her prey from the sky. It's a rather menacing looking creature, isn't it? Lady Renoa remarked to Braden. When Serafina heard Lady Renoa say this about such a beautiful bird of prey, she struggled to keep herself calm. She wanted to yell, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard," but she was pretty sure that at least one of them would figure out who it was hiding in the bushes. "I think she's beautiful," Braden said calmly. There was something about her tone that caught Serafina. He didn't seem angry or annoyed like she thought he should be. If anything, he seemed a bit distant, like he had other things on his mind. But then he seemed to slowly bring himself around and focus on the moment at hand. "Well," he said, "let's see how she can do today." Braden had told her that the falcon would never be able to fly again. She thought it was kind of him to bring Kess out into the sunlight, at least that she could look around and remember the better days. But then, to Serafina's amazement, Braden lowered his arm and threw the falcon up into the sky. Kess didn't just fly. She flapped up into the breeze and soared, calling out in pure joy. Serafina could see the smile on Braden's face as he pointed to the bird and talked to Lady Renoa excitedly, sharing all the different facts he knew about hawks and falcons. Kess's flight had changed his mood entirely. The flying falcon had long, pointed wings that pumped her through the sky, and a long tail that she used for steering and braking. Serafina could tell that she was still favoring her damaged wing, but she seemed so happy to be in the sky even for a little while. But it bewildered her. How did Braden fix a broken wing that could not be fixed? Lady Renoa watched the flying falcon in silence, as if nothing she was seeing was impressing her. Serafina wanted to scratch her eyes out more than ever. But right at that moment, something extraordinary happened. A red fox ran up the steps, brushing past Serafina and trotting across the south terrace towards Braden and Lady Renoa. The fox had a beautiful red and silver coat, the black legs and white underside, and a huge puffy red tail. Its ears were perked up, its nose pointed, and its eyes alert. When Lady Renoa saw the fox coming towards her and Braden, she screamed, "An animal!" The startled fox paused and sat a few yards away from them, as if he was sorry that he had scared the girl in the fancy dress. But Braden squatted down and faced the fox. "Come on, little guy. We won't hurt you," he said, stretching out his hand. "You're welcome to join us. How's your paw doing?" The fox walked down to Braden and sat at his feet. Serafina watched in amazement. A dog or a horse was one thing, but how could Braden befriend a wild fox? Keeping low, she crawled up a few more steps to get closer look. The falcon continued to circle in the open air out beyond the wall where Braden and Lady Renoa were standing. When Braden whistled, the bird tilted its wing and looked at him. Braden smiled. "Did you see that? Did you see how she looked over here at us? She's so happy." "Well, I must say, it does seem to like you," Lady Renoa said, with a smile, finally giving in to Braden's enthusiasm as she watched the bird fly around them. "She's a girl," Braden said gently. "Her name is Kess." He seemed to be so willing to teach Lady Renoa about animals and show her how a better way of thinking, like he understood that she was from the city and didn't understand animals the way he did. Serafina thought he was far more patient than she ever could be. "Can you get her to do whatever you tell her to do?" Lady Renoa asked. "Does it follow your commands?" "No," Braden said. "She's my friend. I do things for her and she does things for me." "I see," Lady Renoa said thoughtfully, looking up at the bird. Suddenly, this interested her. She turned and pointed towards the ridge of the house. "Can you have it kill one of those pigeons up there?" "Actually, those are mourning doves, not pigeons," Braden said, and he looked towards the dove and then looked towards the falcon. "I suppose," he said uncertainly, "but I don't want her to stress her wing. And I don't think she's hungry. I fed her some chicken a la cream this afternoon, and she seems to like it very much." Serafina smiled. Classic Braden, stealing garment meals from under the nose of the Biltmore French chef to feed his animal friends. When Serafina's stomach growled, she realized she wouldn't have minded some of those chicken things herself. "So, she can't actually do anything useful, then," Lady Renoa said. "You haven't taught her any tricks." Braden quickly knelt down and petted the fox's head and ears. He finally seemed a little discouraged by Lady Renoa's words. "I have an idea," he said, standing once more. "Let's try this." He walked a few feet and then picked up a stick. "What are you going to do with that?" Lady Renoa asked. "Kess's wings is still on the mend, but let's see if she wants to play a little." Braden hurled the stick up into the sky, then gave a long whistling call. The whistle and the flashing, somersaulting stick caught the falcon's attention immediately. She rolled, tucked her wings, and plunged into a stoop. She dove plummeting at high speed through the air. At the last second she pulled back her wings, thrusted out her talons, and grabbed the stick. She got it, Braden exclaimed. Serafina's heart leapt with the thrill of seeing the bird in action. Well, look at that, Lady Renoa said. Even Miss Hoity-Toity is impressed, Serafina thought with a smile. But then the falcon came gliding towards Lady Renoa at head level. What is it doing? Lady Renoa asked, covering back and shielding herself with her parasol. Why is it flying at me? Tell it to stop. The falcon flew over her head and dropped the stick on her. Help! It's attacking me, Lady Renoa screamed, as the stick bounced harmlessly off her parasol and fell to the ground. The fox darted in, grabbed it, and trotted over to Braden, as if they were all playing a grand game of fetch. They're just playing with you, Braden assured Lady Renoa. As he knelt down and petted the fox again, he gazed up at the flying falcon. She's such a wonderful bird, he said. Serafina could hear the admiration in his voice and maybe a little sadness. Once her wing has healed all the way, she'll be ready to fly long distance again, and she'll continue her migration to South America. Can you imagine flying all the way to the jungles of Peru? Well, I have to say it seems a shame to let it go after all the work you've put into it, Lady Renoa said. You don't want to lose it. Perhaps you can use a rope to tie it to a branch so it can't get away. If you tie her with a rope, she couldn't fly, Braden said, horrified by the thought. A string, then, or a steel wire, something to control it. A steel wire would definitely work. As Serafina fumed over Lady Renoa's horrible suggestions, Braden whistled a low, warbling call. The falcon turned and flew towards him. Watch out, Lady Renoa cried, but the bird came in for a nearly perfect landing in his arm. Kess is my friend, Braden said. Friendship is more powerful than the strongest wire. As the fox trotted into the woods and Braden and Lady Renoa walked back towards the house, Braden carried Kess on his arm. Would you like to come to the stables with me, where I put Kess away? Of course not, Lady Renoa said, wrinkling her nose. Come with me, Braden urged her. I'll show you the manure we built for Kess. I don't go into stables of any kind. I might get my clothes dirty, Lady Renoa said heartedly. I shall go upstairs and change out of our stroll. With this, Lady Renoa separated from Braden and went into the house. Serafina quickly followed Braden as he walked towards the stables. She hoped she could talk to him alone, but as she came up behind him, her stomach felt like it was spinning. What could she say? What would make any difference to him? How could she explain what happened? Before she could work up to the courage to say anything, the stableman came into view, and she lost her chance. A few minutes later, as the sun was beginning to set, Braden met Lady Renoa out in front of her house again. Serafina was surprised to see that the English girl had completely changed her appearance in a short amount of time. Her hair, her clothing, and her accoutrements were all different. Apparently, going for a walk on the wooden path of the estate required a completely different outfit from what she had on while standing on the terrace. Lady Renoa now wore what looked like a lady's hiking outfit from a grand shop in London with a form-fitting button jacket, a dark long skirt, and a jaunty leather ankle boots. And of course the outfit came complete with a matching hat, a small pair of opera glasses, presumably to better enjoy the natural scenery, and a fancy, obviously useless, feather-adorned hiking staff. Braden and Lady Renoa walked side by side down the estate-wide, perfectly manicured paths. These were just the type of fancy folk that Mr. Olmsted had designed the paths for, to give them the feeling that they were in nature, that they were in deep parts of the forest, but without the inconvenience or discomfort. Serafina followed at a safe distance, trying to figure out what to do. She needed to talk to Braden, but here Lady Renoa was again blocking her way. As they passed through a grove of hemlock, oak, and maple trees, she couldn't quite manage to hear what they were saying, but they seemed to be deep in conversation about something. As Braden continued to talk with Lady Renoa, Serafina felt an itch creeping up her spine. At first she thought it might be the aggravating tone of Lady Renoa's high and mighty accent, or the annoying tilt of her overly stylish hat, that she slowly realized that it was something far more serious than that. Serafina scanned the forest. She spotted a dark shape on a branch high up in a nearby tree. The sight of it put a lump in her throat, and she became very still, not wanting to move another inch, lest it noticed her. It was deep in the cover of branches and difficult to see, but from its silhouette it appeared it might be an owl or some other type of large bird. She couldn't make out the details or color of the creature, but she could see that it had a round head with no ear tufts. Owls normally slept in the day, of course, but as night came on, this one seemed to be perched there in the canopy of the trees, silently watching Braden and Rowena on the forest floor below. Serafina decided that she could wait no longer, whether Renoa was there or not. She had to talk to Braden. As she rose to approach him, she remembered Braden on his knees, crying in anguish in the pool of blood at Gideon's side, and Renoa screaming at her to get out of the Biltmore. She remembered biting the footman and running away in shame. A hot flash flushed through her body. Her legs wobbled beneath her, but she pushed herself on. She stepped out of the bushes, walked up behind Braden and Rona, and spoke. "Braden, it's me.